Welcome back to the Rollup High Roller community. As always, nothing on the Rollup is to be construed as financial advice. We are just some educators in the DeFi space. Toss us a quick like, give us a share, a repost, send it to a friend who may want to watch this, and finally, give us a sub or a follow. It means the world to help support credibly neutral educational content in DeFi. We're here to educate, empower, and enrich you, and let's jump in.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rollup. Here today, alignment with our modular rollup thesis, which is using a non-EVM virtual machine and using an alternative DA layer. We have Nick from Fuel, the CEO of Fuel Labs, an OG in the space, today to talk about the Rollup OS that Fuel has recently launched. So, GM Nick, welcome. Good to have you back.
Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, thanks for that.
Will we be seeing those Fuel hats in ETH Denver?
I think we'll have a lot of Fuel merch. So yeah, we'll have some solid stuff. Yeah, we've got also some VM day execution day merch that's pretty great. So yeah,
Nice.
we're just leaning in to the execution day idea. So yeah,
nice, love it. So as one of the earliest adopters of kind of optimistic rollups and rollups in general, it's quite interesting to me that you've kind of now came to this idea that, well, maybe the EVM isn't the best thing to scale these rollups to, mass adoption or tons of different use cases. And so now you kind of came up with this idea of Rollup OS, like the operating system for rollups. Maybe we can kind of unpack a little bit as to, some of the reasonings behind Fuel, and then dive deeper into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the main idea, the way that you could think about this, and especially in light of the space and how the space is transforming, you can think about it like most of the architectures you see, most of the stuff you see in the space right now is not really designed for rollups, or it wasn't designed for the problems of now. Basically, the idea that we're embracing rollups and modularity as a way to progress blockchains in a way that we've never seen before. And right now we're in a weird position where a lot of these architectures were designed for monolithic layer ones, or they were designed for effectively arbitrary execution, right? Like running video games and stuff on your computer. So we have a bunch of different environments and a bunch of different tools that weren't really designed for what we need to use them for now, what the moment demands. And so with the Rollup OS and what Fuel's doing, we're basically saying, look, like, what if you could really have it all? What if you could really have the virtual machine, the language, and the operating system for rollups that you really needed in order to get both throughput, security, scale, and all the tools and everything that you're really looking for when you're building out rollups and you're building out these new kinds of systems, and be able to do that really cost effectively, and also be able to do that in a way that we've just never seen before in the space. And so, Fuel designing itself or setting itself up as sort of the Rollup OS is really to say that everything else can't really say that. I mean, maybe you could say Starkware and Aztec are somewhat like this in the sense that they're building for rollups specifically, but our architecture is really designed for rollups from the beginning. And I'd also say that in regard to external DA and also just the meaning of rollups themselves, I'd say that we've actually come to a different conclusion about DA. So for us, we're going full Ethereum 4844 DA, and we're, I think, able to achieve a very high rate of throughput on 4844 DA to a point where I don't see us filling it up anytime soon, and I think that it is more than enough for now. And I think as Ethereum expands its sharding roadmap and gets closer to 16 megabytes, 16 megabytes per block, something like that, I think we're going to see a lot more throughput. So Fuel's actually embracing the blob space and the 4844 ethos and Ethereum alignment in a deeper way than we ever realized. But that being said, we do want people to launch Fuel rollups with Celestia DA, with Avail DA, with EigenLayer DA. I think you want to let people choose. You want to let them customize what they want to do with rollups. But I think that for us and for our rollup that we're going to roll out this year, it's going to be 4844 DA. It's going to be ETH for fees. It's going to be any wallet you want, and I mean any wallet. Just pick a wallet. I don't care where it's from. Pick a wallet, and have the security and throughput that people are really looking for. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, let's kind of like set the stage for like the precipice of Fuel here. Like you guys are launching this operating system. You're gonna let the users and the developers choose their DA solutions and kind of like open up this design space for Rollup developers to launch with any kind of DA that they like, connect with any wallet that they like. And Fuel is also going to launch its own rollup that is going to use Ethereum's proto-dank sharding. So that's what's on the horizon here for Fuel. Could you talk about like kind of like putting your money where your mouth is and kind of dog fooding your own technology here? Like when you guys are looking to launch your own rollup with Fuel, like what are some of the things that are very, very key in the operating system that you're carrying over into this rollup that is built very natively within the Fuel ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think that when you're deploying rollups, I think Arbitrum actually has a pretty good idea. Now, I'm not going to signal exactly how things are going to go for Fuel, what we're going to do. I'm not going to say anything in particular, but I think Arbitrum has the right idea with having a core rollup do a lot of things that are probably a lot cheaper than doing that on Ethereum. And then having a lot of other kinds of rollups around that. And basically, I can't speak too much to exactly how this is going to work because we have a lot of really great stuff on the horizon in terms of how this is going to actually function, which will deserve its own releases and its own study. But I'll say that in terms of rollups, I think that people want to be able to launch their own stuff and with their own ideas. They don't want to have to rebuild everything from scratch, but they do want to inherit a lot of really great stuff off the bat. And so unlike a lot of these other architectures, Fuel is really designed in many ways to be very extensible such that you can add the opcodes that you're looking for, you can add the kinds of feature functionality that you're looking for, but not have to rebuild everything, not have to retool everything, not have to reconstruct everything. And allowing them to interoperate, allowing all these different rollups to have an interoperation plan is something that I think people are also really looking for. And we're seeing sort of the first conversations with some of the ZK stuff that Polygon's doing. And I think that Fuel is very uniquely positioned in the optimistic space to do this kind of interoperation, which also deserves its own study and its own ideas as well. But effectively, maybe that gives you some insight as to kind of what we're rolling out and maybe some of the intuitions and the ideas behind how that would work. Yeah.
Yep. And so Fuel at the VM level is a purpose-built virtual machine with parallelization for transactions and your own kind of custom programming language called Sway. So let's kind of just unpack what parallelization means for the audience. And I'm personally keen to understand if using kind of Ethereum DA is a good trade-off for Fuel VM and the rollup, because the VM actually provides a ton of this capacity that, kind of like EVM or other structures, don't. And so you can then opt to have effectively a more decentralized, DA solution, or if there's other thoughts there. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say in regard to the virtual machine design. So in that sense, we wanted a virtual machine that covered a lot of the ground that you see in terms of something that is maybe slightly lower level from the EVM. So the EVM is like 256-bit. This is 64-bit. As well, you want something that, again, can be parallel processed. So in that sense, we use a technique using UTXOs that allows us to parallel process everything, but still get the same effect and behavior and developer kind of experience as you would get with Ethereum. So you don't lose anything from Ethereum. You still have all the same tools at your disposal, like general purpose smart contracts and all this sort of stuff. So you get everything you're looking for. You get a much cleaner VM, one that's designed for, again, sort of the needs of today, but as well one that has other features that are really important, like natively secured account abstraction and account signing, which again allows you to use any kind of wallet, whatever way you like, and you can design anything you want inside of those. As well, having this very, very sort of high throughput. I think initially we were a little more hesitant about Ethereum DA and its roadmap and how far it was going to get. But now that 4844 is where it is and we have definable numbers, we're very comfortable launching our sort of core rollup on it and allowing other people eventually to launch their own core rollups on it, because it's enough DA. It's enough DA for a lot of transactions, and enough transactions that it would call for having a really parallel processed execution environment like Fuel, and having one that has this sort of high performance VM that we have. And then as far as Sway, it's really just, Solidity's had its share of kind of growing pains and issues over time. And I think that while I've basically been a user of Solidity since version of like 0.6, so like almost since the beginning, it's really not been a very fun road to travel. And effectively a lot of devs just end up looking toward much lower level solutions like Yule or Huff or something else, because it just doesn't feel like you really have good control over the EVM and over everything that you really want to do. And while we built up a lot of infrastructure around it, and while it's continuing to sort of grow as an ecosystem, I don't think it's going away. I think there's a real need for a blockchain language, like one that really cleans everything up, but that allows me to target any environment I want. So whether it's targeting Fuel or eventually potentially targeting Wasm or Solana or the EVM, you can use one language, you can do everything inside of it. It's a very nice design language. It incorporates a lot of these newer ideas we have about programming languages that come from Rust and other systems, but it's flexible enough to also do your testing, to do your indexing, to do a lot of different things inside of it. And so a dev can really use it in many different ways. And I think it's worth a dev learning versus a language tied to only one VM with only one use case, like just smart contracts. So that's maybe like the headline pitch for kind of the Fuel VM and Sway.
Yep. Are there like developer resources, like I would say a good portion of our community is developer oriented and looking to dive into some of this material. So what is like the best like path for someone to learn about these new programming languages, get exposed to them, and then ultimately start getting their hands dirty in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think and again, as much as we've been building for many years, it's still early days in terms of building with Fuel and launching on Fuel stuff. So like big preface on it's early. So just, so watch out. But best place is we're, culminating all of our docs to docs.fuel.network. So everything should be there. As far as whether you're learning the language, you're learning about Fuel, you're learning about any aspect of our architecture, it's all going to be in one place. So you don't need to hop around to many different docs. We're continually trying to push the docs. So it's going to get a lot better. I think there's going to be a lot more cheat sheets and a lot more stuff that just allows you to get set up a lot faster. And as well, we'll have solutions in the future that should make deploying your own systems and rollups really, really streamlined. But the main idea is that I would start there, and then forum.fuel.network is where you definitely got to ask questions. So we try to keep on that as hard as we can. And so it's I think we're 20-hour response time, so pretty good. We'll try to continue to improve that over time. But basically those would be the two places I would go if you just want to get started. And it's really just trying to deploy a smart contract, trying to deploy an app, give us your feedback, give us everything. We will stay responsive and make changes at this stage. So if you have feedback, it will affect the whole system. We'll incorporate as much as we can. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's just interesting kind of dynamic happening in the rollup space now where you've got a lot of teams who are kind of actively trying to be quick and to effectively take as much ETH off of L1 as they can into their rollup, while the broader rollup space is kind of putting forward this collaborative front in a sense of composability, asynchronous communication, atomic composability. We should have a one UX for all, but Arbitrum's our UX, so you guys should come join ours. And Optimism's no, you guys should come join ours. And so we kind of have this interesting situation where we're still in the early days of rollups where each one is trying to get this market share. But I feel there's almost been this lack of understanding as to why rollups are even here. It's all to kind of scale Ethereum, and the infighting or the competition within is a current bull market share capture phenomenon. But I think we see this kind of shift into broadly scaling Ethereum as these kind of more advanced interoperability things come online, like shared sequencing, etc. Curious kind of how you see Fuel fitting in the landscape, how you plan to interoperate with other rollups, and generally kind of your perspective on rollups today.
Yeah, I think everything's very early in the space. I think that the competition and the infighting and the tribalism and stuff is like very normal, and I've unfortunately seen that the entire time I've been doing blockchain stuff. So to me, I'm just like that's like my base level acceptance of what behavior I'm seeing is always just like extreme tribalism between the different spaces. I think the thing is, I guess the way I see it with Fuel is just that what we're doing is very different. It's very niche. It's definitely not what a lot of other people are doing. We don't need 1,000 copy pasta projects to launch with us. While that might look good and it might up some numbers somewhere, I think what we want is people that they have a feeling with the current status quo that it just kind of sucks, and that they want to look for something better. Like they want to look for an improvement, something different, something that piques their curiosity with like what is even possible with blockchain, but also have a lot of the problems that they probably will run into if they were to design it all from scratch. If they were to just stop right now, design everything from scratch, they probably want everything we've included, basically. And so I think that what Fuel has in terms of a technology and also the kind of community that we're trying to build is one that basically can have that really deep curiosity for trying different things and trying to benefit from all the work that we've done in terms of thinking around high performance, like parallel environments, like as well state growth and state sustainability, like interoperability, customizability, all kinds of different tooling and infrastructure requirements, like basically trying to take care of all of that such that you're left with an architecture you feel like will last a long time and will also be really performant for your users. And as well, that your users don't need to change anything. Like for them, it's just a dApp. They don't notice any difference. They're using MetaMask, they're signing everything as normal. Everything feels pretty much sort of like what they're used to. We don't want users to change at all. We want, the users are fine. We want to support more ways that users can interoperate their stuff. The main thing is just that we want to solve all these other big issues, right? And these are crippling in terms of EVM design, and the EVM is just so constrained as to what it can actually do. And you can add a bunch of special precompiles and stuff into it, but it's really sort of not designed for 2024 crypto. It's just not a good architecture in general. And we can pipeline it and parallelize it, and we can do all kinds of things to it, but unfortunately, it's not going to, I think, move the needle, and Fuel will just be so significantly farther ahead in terms of what a dev will want that you wouldn't really want to use that. And I think as well, a problem and maybe a reason why there's so much tribalism in the Ethereum rollup space is they're all using the same EVM. So there's no differentiation. Like there's no moat really between most of these things. There's nuance between the security differences of different projects. There's nuances between what trade-offs, but currently the community is maybe a little bored, I think, with the available solutions that are out there. And yes, you can do everything in WASM and you can do everything in RISC-V and you can go super low level, but do you really want to do that? Do you really want to rebuild asset systems and all other kinds of things? Because you have to think about how do you account for everything and how is that going to interoperate with everything else, right? So really all the design choices we made and the trade-offs we made encompass all kinds of different reasoning around how rollup should work and how the future of rollup should work. And I think, with us, it's very early. It's a different kind of build. It's going to be a different kind of project as well, like if you go with us. But I think that it'll also be something that, will allow your project to deeply advance into what's possible with blockchain much further and with much less work than what you typically see in the space. So there's always trade-offs to everything. Nothing's perfect. If you go with an EVM chain, no one's going to blame you. But at the same time, it's probably not the right architecture if you're really planning for scale and you're really planning for like an incredible user experience. I think that with that, you have to go a lot further. And I think Fuel is uniquely positioned to be able to bring a lot of projects into that space. And we have more than enough projects that want to deploy their own stuff with us. It's really just, the question is always, is it going to be ready? When's it ready? And that question will be answered. So yeah.
When token, as always. And I think Rob and I wholeheartedly agree in with regards to the VM design. I just put out a tweet over the weekend, like, this is my modular expansion timeline. And I think right now and over the last couple of months, DA has gotten all the hype. And, rightfully so. If we can scale Ethereum rollups down costs significantly, tons of projects are launching on Celestia. Avail is going live soon. EigenDA is coming online. Near's been online. So it's definitely been like the biggest, kind of like trend. But I think that quickly shifts in like Q2, Q3 of this year, which is probably going to be aligned in some sense with your timeline, in the sense of everything that you're saying from a functionality perspective is so much deeper and more important and more, it's going to have such a bigger impact than just DA. And so I think this ideation of innovation on the VM level is going to just absolutely just boom, for lack of a better term, Cambrian explosion of possibilities. Because I think generally it's like a much bigger set of, onboarding devs, of UX, of tooling, of all these things. And DA is just kind of one piece of this pie. Yeah. I mean, just generally agree.
We love Cambrian explosions over here. And that's kind of what it feels like. I think it makes sense. And there's a reason that it started with DA, because you wouldn't really need all of this extra capacity in your VM if you didn't have anywhere to put it. So now that we have abundant block space, it's like, all right, well, how are we going to fill this up? And that's where VMs come in. And now they're so much more colorful and vibrant VMs, because you kind of have the capacity to do a lot more. And generally, you guys are pushing that space forward.
Yeah. And again, I think even just to speak to that too, we've been planning for that day of having too much block space for a very long time. So for us, unlike a lot of other environments, Fuel is very much ready to use up that DA. Effectively, our design trades off a lot of bandwidth for state, which inherently means that, again, on the front of processing a lot of transactions and doing a lot of volume globally, actually having a system that can do that, but do it sustainably, that's how we do it. I mean, we do trade off state for bandwidth, and it allows us to sort of have this potential. And I think that, it is awesome that there's going to be a lot of DA. I think at the same time, though, that there's still nothing like Ethereum secure DA, just because of the amount, just the sheer amount of validation and eyes, RPCs, everything on it, to a point where I think it's going to take a very long time to get better at that, or better than that, I would say, in terms of DA. So it's not to undervalue, I think, the existing Ethereum blob space, which is still a lot. But yes, I think for a lot of applications that want to have a wider creative space and they don't want to have to pay enormous fees for enormous amounts of security, I think that the available DA solutions that are external are really going to open the door. And I feel like Fuel's design inherently is built for that moment.
Yeah, it's the perfect storm. All the DA stuff is going to get established and is now. And then towards the the end of half this year, all the VMs are going to come online. And then I don't know, 2025 might just be we just might see a crazy, yeah. Just bullish, man.
I completely agree. I think we're all very excited. And I think that also just with the way rollups are working out, I feel like, a lot of people are very excited about the way Celestia is developing in terms of, how different projects are coming to it. I mean, effectively, it's one giant reoccurring airdrop. But I think that model plays out well with a lot of projects. I feel like a lot of projects, if there was a true model to really emulate, I feel like that's not a bad one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite an interesting couple of token distribution things going on right now with NFT communities, with staking TIA and Dimension. It's this never-ending loop, get an airdrop, stake it for more. But then again, in Fuel's case, let's say there's going to be 10 rollups that launch using the Fuel VM on top of the stack in 2025. I mean, how else do you get exposure to that as a bullish holder, right? It's it's these kind of cases of well, we can expand the chain so much and get all this new block space. At some point, the party's going to end, but for now, we're not even at 1,000, 10,000, chains or rollups. So
we're just getting started. And again, every single project that you see in crypto right now will have its own chain. It'll want its own chain, It'll have its own chain because there's a feeling you get when you have your own chain and you have your own sovereignty. And it's a feeling that you can't reproduce in any other way. And it's a feeling that's very not felt when you write a smart contract, but that is felt when you have your own rollup, your own chain. And it's the feeling of real sovereignty over your project. And as well to be able to set a path for the project that like really will help the users. So long as you can make this work, right? Like you have to make it interoperate, you have to make it scalable, and you have to make it, it has to be done a certain way. But if it can just be done in a certain way, I think for developers, it feels very, very empowering. Probably very similar to how it felt to like spin up your first website, you know, in early internet days with like GoDaddy or something. Like very similar to that in terms of just the flexibility and the creativity that you can apply to it. Now, again, there's a lot of concerns. You can't mix them all together. And if you bridge them all together and call the assets the same, then you've just mixed all the security properties of random rollups together. So you can't do that. But what you can do is, and more excitingly, you can bring them together in different ways. And I think that I think people are discovering that this is going to be possible and it's going to be good enough. And we have a lot of incredible solutions on the table to be able to make rollups a really great experience, very safe, and also really dynamic and really creative, like far more than a single chain could ever enable, basically.
Well, I look forward to doing more of a technical deep dive in our upcoming Modular March. Kind of some more of these state bloat conversations I think are particularly interesting, as well as the broader parallelization. I'm glad that you brought up the airdrop concept. I never bring it up because Rob always gives me shit, but it's quite funny, of a distribution. I appreciate your insights and look forward to this modular thesis kind of being cemented and Fuel being a big player.
Awesome. Yeah, likewise. And you know, there's a million other things to go way off the deep end. So, you know, should definitely at some point do that. But I think right now, you know, we can keep it light. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks everyone.